Hi there, have you had trouble with boiling your cereals? Well, today I want to share with you a perfect solution for that, and this is using an electric pot. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ogacho Caro. So today I want to share with you 4 tips on how to work easy with an electric pot and make your cooking in the kitchen easy. This is my pot. It's a Von make. And tip number 1 is the structure and the function of the pot. And the electric pot has an outer pot, and the outer pot has 3 main parts. And the first part is the control panel. Here is the control panel. The control panel has operation keys. You have the cancel button, you have the start button. You have other buttons that guide you on how to use the button. For example, once you plug in the pot on the power, and maybe you realize that probably if it was cereals that you're boiling, that you needed to put salt, so you'll cancel the pot and start again. It has all those keys that enable you to work easy and get the maximum use of the pot. The pot also has the types of foods that you can cook. For example, my pot says that I can prepare yogurt, I can use it to bake cake, I can use it to boil eggs, I can steam food, I can boil food, and it also gives the types of cooking methods that you can use. For example, you can steam your food, you can boil your food, you can saute your food. So that's the control panel. The second thing on the external pot is this condensate collector. This is the part where water from the pressure that comes from the cooking drains. It's called a condensate collector. And finally, on the external pot, you have the power plug. So those are the 3 main parts on the external pot. That is the power plug, the condensate collector, and then the control panel. The pot also has a lid, and on the lid, here is the lid, and on the lid you have the handle. And it's important to note that this handle does not get hot even when the cooking is ongoing. So it's a very good handle. And on the lid also, you have this float valve. It's called a float valve. You also have another, this tiny hole here is called an exhaust valve. So what is the work of this exhaust valve? When you're cooking your food, when you start cooking your food, the exhaust valve will be down there, but once the pressure has built in the pot, the exhaust valve covers up to the top. It's a silver valve. So once you've been able to, or the pressure has built up enough when you're cooking, it rises up and covers up to the top. Then the float valve rotates. It's removable, so you can easily clean it. The work of the float valve is to allow pressure to come out and also to seal in the pressure. So how does it work? When you're cooking your food, once you have closed the lid of the pot, you make sure that you rotate the float valve onto the side retain sealing. That will make sure that no pressure comes out. And once you're done cooking, you rotate again the float valve on the venting side, and that way the pressure will be released, and you can easily now open your lid and get your food to strain. For example, if it's boiling, that you are doing. So that's it on the lid. We have the exhaust valve, we have the float valve, we have the sealing sign here and the venting side here. And notice that again the float valve can be rotated to the pointing end here to face the sealing side, and again rotate it on the other side to face the venting side to show when you want to release the pressure and when you want to seal in the pressure. So that's it for the lid. Next we have the inner pot, and this is the inner pot. The inner pot is this is where cooking takes place, whether it's steaming, whether it's boiling, whether it's the yogurt you're making. This is where everything takes place. It seems small, but it works miracles. So far so good. And inside the pot you have the ratio meter. It has the measurements, and it has a mark, a maximum mark that guides you on the amount of water to put. For example, if it's boiling, it shows you that at the maximum part, the food or the water should not go beyond that to avoid spillage. So this is all about the pot. The good thing about this pot is that it's very easy to clean, and you should not use steel wire to clean it. Just use the normal Scotch-Brite to clean it, and it's easy to clean. And maybe you're wondering, what if my food sticks down there? Good question. The pot also comes with a tripod. This is the tripod, and this tripod helps in cooking those foods that maybe you feel they can stick on the bottom of the inner pot. So how do you go about it? Once you put water inside here, for example, let's say you're preparing meat and you don't want your meat to maybe stick down there at the bottom of the pot, you can put the tripod, put your water first, put the tripod, and then you can put your meat on top. Also at times, maybe if you want to defrost your food, and again it's in a container, the food is in a container, you can put the water, put the tripod, and then put the frozen food on top of the tripod. So that's the work of the tripod. The pot also has other accessories that it comes with, and remember I say that these pots are different. Mine came with a measuring cup, also came with these 2 spoons. For when you're cooking, you can use them to stir, you can use them to measure. The same thing applies to the cup. That's it with the inner pots. So when we talk about the functions and the structure of the pot, we have the outer pot, and this outer pot is not supposed to be dipped in a dishwasher or maybe cleaned with water, because this is where the power plug is. So you can only wipe it with a damp cloth. But the good thing is that that is not so much required, because most of the time the pot will not have any spillage. When it comes to the lid, again there'll be no spillage, so you just wipe the top of it with a damp cloth and you're good to go. The lid also has this mark to show the side to close and the side to open, so that makes it easy to work with the lid. And that's it with the structure and the function of the pot. Tip number 2, the foods that I have cooked using my pots. I've been able to boil cereals, that is I've boiled cowpeas, and this takes about 55 minutes, and the 55 minutes means after the preheating period, the countdown starts. I'll set my pot up to 55 minutes, and at the end of the 55 minutes my cowpeas are ready for straining and even stewing. I've also managed to boil beans, and the procedure is the same like for the cowpeas. I've managed to boil green grams, that takes around 45 minutes. The procedure is the same as boiling the beans and the cowpeas. I've also boiled meat, and the meat takes less minutes. especially if you want to boil and stew, the perfect minutes is 15 minutes, because if you do more than that, the meat will get off the bones. I've also managed to boil broiler chicken. That takes 5 minutes. Yes, 5 minutes. And again, if you do more than 5 minutes, the meat will get off the bones. So 5 minutes maximum, and you have your broiler chicken ready for either eating, or you can even stew it later on a different pot. I've also boiled eggs in the pot. The eggs take 10 minutes. And remember, I said with the minutes I'm mentioning, that is the 55 minutes for the cowpeas, the 55 minutes for the beans, the 45 minutes for the green grams, the 15 minutes for the meat, the 5 minutes for the broiler chicken, the 15 minutes for the eggs. Remember, there is the preheating period, which I'll talk about on my third tip. There's the preheating period. So the minutes I'm mentioning now are the minutes that count down after the preheating time. I've also managed to boil arrowroots, and the perfect way to do it is by using the tripod. Remember the tripod I talked about, the tripod. So what I do with the arrowroots is to put the water in the inner pot. Remember the inner pot. You put water in the inner pot, and then you put the tripod inside the water. And then again, when I'm boiling the arrowroots, you put the water in the inner pot, you put the tripod, and then you put the arrowroots on top of the tripod. Notice that arrowroots are very they're soft, they cook quickly. So by using the tripod, you make sure that you get the best quality and the best cooked arrowroots. So that's it for the types of food that I've managed to cook with my pot. And try it and let me know how it works for you. On to my third tip, preparing the cereals. So like I said, I have had my pot for 1 year, and I mentioned that the pot came with a measuring cup, but I would want you to note that from the experience I've got from my pot and the size of my family, I don't use this measuring cup as often. I've come up with my own measuring cup. I use a tumbler, and I want to take you through boiling a cereal using by measuring my cereal with a tumbler, and I'm going to take you through boiling beans. When I'm boiling beans, I'll use 2 tumblers of beans. This will be my measuring cup, and the 2 tumblers will give me portions for 3 meals. 3 meals for 2 tumblers of beans. So how do I go about it? Once I've cleaned my beans, strained the water, I'll put the beans in the inner pot. Here is the inner pot. So once I put my clean beans in the inner pot, I'll add salt. I like putting salt on my beans so that once they're ready, they already have salt. So I put my beans, I put the salt, I shake a bit or I stir a bit using my spoon, and once I stir, I'll add water. How do I measure my water? From experience again, remember I said that on the inner pot you have the marking ratio, and there's the ratio here that shows where the maximum there's a maximum mark here. So I'll put my beans, the 2 tumblers, and then I'll put water up to the max mark. And when I'm putting the beans here and the water, I make sure that the pot is very dry. Remember, this inner pot gets into the outer pot, so you have to make sure that it's dry. There's no water on top of the inner pot. So once I have my beans here and my water here, again with my outer pot, remember the outer pot, we say it has the power plug. I'll plug in the power plug onto the socket. And once I do that, there'll be a clicking sound that you hear from the pot. And then again, I'll make sure that I put my pot on a stable table, or wherever place that you decide to place your pot. Make sure that it's a stable place. You don't want it to fall. So once I place the pot, I've plugged it in. I take the inner pot that has the beans with the water and the salt in it. Salt is optional, remember, that's my own liking. I'll put the pot inside. I'll plug in the power plug on the socket. And once I plug in, remember I said there'll be a clicking sound from the pot, which is very normal. And then I'll take my lid and cover. Again, when I'm covering the pot with the lid, you'll hear another sound that enables you to know that the pot has properly closed. So again, you put the power plug, you plug in the power plug, there'll be a sound. You put the lid, you close it properly, another sound that enables you to know that indeed you have closed properly, and the lid has closed properly. Once you've done that, notice that when you lift the lid up, it will not come off, unlike when you open and lift it up. So notice and make sure that you have closed properly and the lid does not come off. What's the next thing? Remember, I said when I was explaining about the lid, I mentioned of a mark that shows how you open the lid and how you close the lid. Make sure that you follow that. And then once you've closed your lid properly, remember this pot is on a stable place, but I'm turning for showing you the functions of the lid while cooking. Remember this exhaust valve that I talked about. Right now it seems like it's hollow because there's no any cooking takes place. So once the cooking starts, this exhaust valve will come up and it will close up. So there'll be a silver like valve down there that will come up to show that pressure has built up already inside the pot. So I'll make sure that the float valve is facing the ceiling side. Don't know whether you can see that, the ceiling side. So this protruding part here will face the ceiling side, and then the exhaust valve will come up once the pressure has built up. Remember I mentioned something about the preheating. Again, I take you back to the control panel. There's this part here. It's called the LED part. And what happens is once you plug in the power plug, the whole control panel lights up red, especially not all the parts, but the start button, the cancel button, and the addition and the subtraction signs here, they light up. Then here on the LED place, there'll be some movement in a circular motion, and this movement shows you that preheating has started. So what is preheating? Preheating is the process that shows you that cooking has started to take place, and the time that it will take to preheat your food depends on the quantity of food that you have in your pot, the ingredients that you're using in your pot, and also the temperature of the food. Remember I said that you can defrost your food using your pot, so it depends with the temperature of the food in the pot, the quantity of the food in the pot, and also the ingredients that you're using in the pot. So for example, when I'm boiling my meat, the preheating period is normally like 5 minutes. When I'm boiling the beans or the cereals, remember I said I normally use boil 2 tumblers of beans that will give me meals like 3 or 4 portions of meals. That's a lot, so it will take like 10 minutes to preheat. So when it's preheating, there'll be a circular movement of some reddish, the lead here will be going round, and it will take 10 minutes for the cereals, it will take 5 minutes for the meat, it will take 5 minutes again for the chicken. So notice that the preheating period depends on the quantity of food that you've put in here, the temperature of the food, and also the ingredients that you have used on the pot. So once you've done that, you have started. When I'm preparing, remember we are preparing beans, so I'll hit the pressure cook button on my pot. Once I press the pressure cook button, automatically my pot goes up to 35 minutes. So what do I do? Using the addition button here, I'll press until 55 minutes, and then I'll press the start button, and then the cooking will start. When the cooking starts, remember again, it's the preheating that starts. And for my beans or for my cowpeas, it takes 10 minutes to preheat. This preheating means pressure is building up, and the exhaust valve, remember, will come up. Once the exhaust valve has come up, the preheating stops and the countdown starts. So you will see 55, the 55 minutes that you had set will pop up here, and then it will start counting down, 55, 54, 53, and then once it goes up to 0, a beeping sound is heard, and that tells you that the set time is up. So what do? You can decide to cancel the cooking, and then you switch off the socket. Another way of doing it is you again cancel and keep warm if you want your food to stay warm. So for the beans, I cancel and then I switch off the socket, and then I allow the pot to cool down on itself. What does that mean? Remember when I was talking about the lid, I mentioned there is the sealing on the valve here, the float valve. I said there's this sealing part here, and then there's the venting part. Once cooking has stopped, I can decide to rotate the float valve on the venting side, and then pressure will come out, and then you'll hear the sound of the pressure coming out. But then again, I've said I normally put my beans and allow time for the pressure to just I don't want to release the pressure. So what do? I let it remain at the ceiling side, and then I just switch off the socket. I cancel and I switch off the socket. So after 10 to 15 minutes, yes, up to 20 minutes, the exhaust seal goes down on itself, and when that happens, I get to know that now the pressure in the pot has reduced, and it's now safe to open my lid, remove my inner pot that has the cooked beans now, and strain my beans, ready for stewing and ready for packing in the freezer. When you're doing that, please make sure that water does not pour, or there is no any liquid that gets into the external pot. Remember, this is where all the electricity is, so you can't afford to allow any liquid getting in there. So that's how I do it when I'm cooking or when I'm boiling my cereals, and it's the same process when I'm doing the meat, when I'm doing the chicken, when I'm doing the eggs. It's only different when I'm doing the arrowroots. Remember, I said when I'm doing the arrowroots, I'll use the tripod, and it will only take 5 minutes. And that's my tip number 3 on how to prepare a cereal. And finally, tip number 4. Probably you're asking yourself, why should I get this pot? Well, your answer, this pot makes the work in the kitchen very easy, especially if you're a working mom and you want to come home and prepare a meal for your family. Like I have said, if it's the meat, it will only take 15 minutes. So you can imagine 15 minutes, your meat is ready boiled. Stewing it will only take like 5 minutes and it's ready. So it takes very little time to boil your foods. And notice that I've mentioned more of boiling with my pot, but that doesn't mean that it can only boil. Remember I said you can saute, you can steam, and you can also stew your food in here, only that when you're stewing your food, you don't now cover with the lid. You just cook on an open when the pot is not covered. So that tells you that even when maybe you've run out of gas and the power is there, you can use your electric pot to stew your food and get your gas the following day. So that's the second reason why you should get an electric pot. It cooks very fast. When there is no power, you've run out of gas, you can use it to cook using power. And also it doesn't make noise. Nobody will know you're cooking. You know the other pressure cookers that we've had before, they make a lot of noise, especially when the pressure is being released. So that's the good thing about the electric pot. There'll be no noise. And another thing is that the pressure cooker does not have any spillage, especially if you follow all the instructions in your manual. There'll be no spillages. When you make sure that the water does not go above the max mark, there'll be no spillage. And that's it for today. If you have loved my video, kindly like it, share it, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's grow together, because this is where I share my experience to just enlighten you so that we move on together. And that's all for today. Until the next one, God bless.